Welcome to episode 18 of Mind and Muse Crafts. Here I am your host, Caroline, and I record bi-weekly basically from the island of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, and I come to you every 2 weeks to share the crafty side of my life. This is a podcast about sharing, so whatever I have gotten my hands on during the week or during the previous weeks in terms of crafts, well, I try to share them with you. I try to find new things for me, new techniques, new patterns, new people to share with you here on the podcast. And if you are willing and able and you would like to share new techniques, new patterns, new people, or new crafts that you are practicing under the comments section of this video, I am more than happy to read them and to have a conversation with you about what's going on. So, thank you. If you are a new viewer, thank you for pressing the watch button and for taking the time to find out what this is all about. If you are a returning viewer, well, thank you also, because it's thinking about you that every time I go past my 2-week time period like now, I feel again the need and the desire to come back. Just thinking that maybe there is somebody browsing through their YouTube recommendations today, looking to see if I've posted something new. So here I am. Today is Wednesday, January 26th. And it's been over 2 weeks. The last podcast that was up, episode 17, I recorded with my daughter, Elizabeth, from the Crochetcakes Podcast. And we shared the screen for a while, which hadn't happened for some time. And so 3 weeks have gone by. Things have happened. Obviously, life gets back to normal once the Christmas period is over, and so we get back to work and we get all the decorations down in our house, and our house begins looking more like it does during the rest of the year. So it's been that time period for me also. And so I am back today to share with you some of the projects that I showed you on the last episode that I had already begun, and one new project that I want to share with you. So let's go into it. And if you have seen the last podcast, my first finished object that I will share with you has got to be kind of obvious. It is this sweater that I also paired up with this necklace that I did share with you on some previous podcast. I believe it was one of the podcasts where I was still filming with Crochetcakes with my daughter. And it is a felted heart. And it seems that coming up February, everything now is beginning to turn its head towards February and the month of love and Valentine's Day. So what more appropriate than to cover up my crochet with more yarn, at least. This is a felted heart, and it was felted. It was made with yarn from the same dyer that I made this sweater out of, and then I felted it, and it is put on an I-cord, a crochet I-cord that has also been felted. And so you can look to a previous podcast where I show several of these creations. It's just here today as part of my self-decoration. So the newer item out of the two is the Homebody sweater. Homebody sweater is a free pattern. You can find it online at megmadewithlove.com. And I'll just show you sort of a better picture. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. So it is meant to be an oversized sweater And there are different versions of it. Some people have made it oversized. Some people have made modifications to it. But if you just search online for the Homebody sweater under images, you'll see lots of images of different changes that people have made. Obviously, you can see that mine doesn't fall off my shoulders like it does in her version, in the original version. I did not make it as oversized. There were several reasons for that. One of them was because of the amount of yarn that I had, and so I didn't want to make it too large because I wanted the amount of yarn that I had to be enough. And I guess the other reason is that I'm not an oversized sweater person, maybe. I mean, it works for who it works for, and just I decided not to do it that way. So this is my version. I created it using yarn that I obtained, minis that I obtained from an advent calendar, 12 Days of Christmas advent calendar that I purchased from Catherine of Crafternoontreats. And she sent me 12 20-gram minis divided into 4 groups based on the seasons. So there was a group that represented winter, a group that represented fall, a group that represented spring and summer, etc. And basically what I tried to do was to select, initially, that was the plan, was just to select one of the minis every day of the 12 days of Christmas that I decided to celebrate starting on December 25th up to the eve of the Epiphany. And every day I would open up a package and crochet that yarn that came out into the sweater. Now, this is fingering weight, so the pattern is made for worsted or DK. With, you know, she gives you suggestions on how to adjust for different types of yarn, and I have seen it made in DK, I have seen it made in fingering, but I paired up my, this was sock yarn. The sock yarn dyed by Catherine. I paired it up with a cotton yarn from Lion Brand. So this was Comfy Cotton in, they only have 2 tonals in solid colors, so this is like the ivory color, and I paired it up with Catherine's yarn each day. So the sweater starts at the bottom. It's from the bottom up. So the bottom colors were the colors that I picked up first. And I got to one point, Claire Smith and I were both doing this. We talked a little bit about this on the previous podcast, but if you haven't seen the episode before, I'll just mention that it got to a point where the mystery of opening up a color and adding it, even though I felt that it didn't coordinate well, became too intense, and so we decided to open them all up and organize our yarns in the order that we thought they would look most appropriate, or that at least we could live with it. And so this was the result of basically a mystery selection of hand-dyed yarn, of hand-dyed minis, and I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea to do it that way. It is just what it is. And with this sweater, I will always remember the Christmas of 2017 and my first experience with advent calendars. Now, I have to say, if I were to do it again, I would not do it in this sense of a mystery. I think I would just, you know, open them all up one day at a time, and then once I had them all open, decide in what order to use them, or maybe if I would need to combine them with other minis that I already have in my stash. But I did not want to start the year with a bunch of yarn that was just going to be set aside and I wasn't going to use it for anything. So if you know a little bit about me, I do frequent visits to the States because I have children there, and I figure I'll get use out of any sweater that I make. I did not have enough yarn enough of the cotton yarn to complete the sleeves. My cotton ends about here. And these, I simply took whatever was left of each colorway, doubled it up, and then tried to make the sleeve at least 3/4 length. I don't know how happy I am with that because there is a difference in weight. Obviously, I've got a DK cotton with fingering weight at the top and finger weight hole double at the bottom, so they're not exactly the same width. And I'm thinking about maybe I would want to see if I have any color in my stash similar to the cotton one. Maybe I'll just rip the sleeves back and redo them. That is why I haven't woven in the edges, because I'm going to just let it sit for a while and then come back to it and see what I have decided about that. So that's my Homebody sweater, and I can't say that it is representative of me and my style, though I have not sure what my style is yet, but I usually tend to use more solids. This mixture of colors is a little bit a lot for me. It's a little bit a lot for me. So, but if you're one of those people that loves color, and specifically in the winter time, you like to have that bit of color in your wardrobe so you don't get all dreary and sad, well, this might be an idea of how to use some of those minis that you have lying around. Like I said, I had 12 minis of 20 grams each. So basically maybe close to 120 grams of fingering weight, and I had 2 balls of comfy cotton. No, I didn't bring, I was looking for the project bag because I wanted to show you. I had nothing left of anything. I used everything up. And so it's a good project if you want to use all of that yarn. And so if you've got many skeins that you feel coordinate well, you could probably fade them out, or you could do some type of gradient. I don't know, but there are ways that you could actually make a sweater like this, maybe that it'll look a little different, but it still uses the same ideas of using your minis. Another thing was that the sock yarn that I used, we mentioned it in the previous podcast that I was able to felt it together. So I really only have these ends to weave in, these 2 and the 4 at the bottom. So making something that changes color every so often and that does not have all of those edges or ends to weave in at the end is also a plus for this type of project. So that is my first finished project that I want to share with you. I'm thinking about whether or not I'll be able to complete this whole podcast with this sweater on. So as I've said, I live in the Caribbean. However, the beginning of the year, January, is usually a cool month. There are a lot of winds and it's not as hot as other months. So it has been a nice cool day, but time did fly by and it's getting towards noon. So I don't know for how long or if I'll be able to have this on during the whole podcast. But I will say that it won't be that long a podcast, so yeah, maybe I won't have to change. We'll see. Second finished object for you were the socks, my Holly Jolly socks that I began in December because I wanted them to be a gift for Christmas, but didn't quite make it. But they're done now, early in the year, so I can always give them for next Christmas. And I'll have them already done. This is, I have mentioned before that this was the Thomasina. This was Thomasina pattern from Kay Jones' collections of the Miss Potter collection, her 3-pattern sock collection that she published, I think it was in November of last year. And so, I say that, but it is, I did not follow the pattern because I have only ever knit socks toe up. And everybody tells me that changing to cuff down is not a big issue. But anyway, as if you know me, everything is a big issue with me. So I have only done them toe up. So her pattern was cuffed down. Her 3 patterns are cuffed down. So I changed it to toe up, which means I didn't use her toe because she includes her umbrella toe that she has designed in the pattern. But I just did a normal toe. It's the toe recommended in Sockmatician's, I guess it's his sock recipe. And so I started toe up. I did try to maintain the pattern, which you really can't see because it is a very simple stitch pattern. It only has 2 rows, and I did try and do that. The heel is a short row heel that is also recommended in and explained in Sockmatician's toe up recipe. The leg is kind of short. I normally do my legs longer. I don't know what happened. I measured to see, and I didn't do the normal 4 inches that I always do. I don't know why. And then I just did, obviously, what is this, a 2x2 cuff. 2x2 cuff. Now you'll notice here that white line at the border of the cuff. That was another, I don't know if I can say a amateur's or novice mistake, because I have worked with self-striping yarn before. This is self-striping yarn called Holly Jolly by a Canadian dyer called the Cozy Knitter. And I have used self-striping before. I don't know why I let it happen. What happened here was I just had 1 row of that white, and what I should have probably done is completed the row of the white before I started the cuff. I don't know why I didn't. I don't know what I was thinking. For some reason, I was just thinking that I wanted to reach 3.5 inches of leg, and when I reached it, I just went onto the cuff and didn't think about what I was doing. So both socks are done. They both have that row of white there. They're pretty much the same, though not exactly. I did do contrasting. This set that was gifted to me by Elizabeth included the main yarn colorway and coordinating green for the heels, toes, and cuffs. But I forgot to do it on my toe, and it just so happened that this one started out with the green, so it actually looks like I coordinated this. So I don't know. I'd have to look back at my notes. I don't know if this is a new mark for me. I believe it took me about a month to crochet them, to knit them up. These are knit, if I haven't said it before. It took me about a month, and so yeah, they're not perfect, but they're okay. I do think that I need to move up to a 2.5 millimeter hook, because for some reason for this particular sock my gauge was tight, and although these are 64 stitches, they're snug. They're not too small, but they are snug. So I don't know if they'll fit the person that I was thinking about gifting them to. Okay, so knit socks done. They were brought over from last year. A second, well, I guess all of these projects were brought over from last year, because I did begin the Homebody sweater the 25th of December when I opened the first Advent calendar yarn. I had begun the socks in December because I wanted to gift them for Christmas. And I had begun these crochet socks for the Strictly 2018 Cal, hosted by Allie of the Little Drops of Wonderful podcast. And so these were my socks. They were Witchy Woman socks. And let me see, they were from a book that I purchased on Amazon. I have only the Kindle version of the book, but it works fine for me. Well, let me see if I get a close-up of this so you can see it. were her version of the socks. And that pretty, whoops, in that pretty variegated yarn, right? Which kind of hides the pattern, both for her and in mine. So this is from the book More Crocheted Socks, 16 all new designs, because there is a first volume of the book. I have mentioned that before. I have the, like I say, I have the Kindle version. Witchy Woman. And I didn't have to, but I made several changes. First of all, my toe, I do have both of these socks. My toe is the star toe. And the star toe is available as a Rohn Strong pattern. You can find it on Ravelry if you just research or look up star toe pattern, and it will take you to the Inside Crochet, I believe it's issue 52, where he published a sock pattern, and in that sock pattern he uses this star toe. So I have the magazine and I use the toe there. The only reason I used the toe and not the toe in the book was simply because this was for the Strictly 2018 cal, which is a cal that runs at the same time as Strictly Come Dancing. Is that what it's called officially? And it's a dance program, or a dance competition program. So I thought that a star toe went well with a dancing composition. It is also, the toe is, I don't know if you can appreciate it here, but the yellow contrast that I used has some stellina in it, so it's a shiny yarn. The main color is a naturally dyed yarn from Crafternoontreats, and this yarn, I might have the ball band here. I purchased from Catherine. Well, I didn't purchase it actually. My daughter gifted it to me. But the purchase went along with a. Sorry about that. It's windy here today, and so the door is shutting. The yarn I used for this sock was dyed by Crafternoontreats. It is 85% ethically produced polywurth and 15% nylon. Her sock base is spun and superwash treated in the UK. These are eco-printed with fresh leaves from birch, goldenrod, and fennel, plus tea. And so she did a special offer with this yarn, where she offered the purchaser at a discounted price, under the condition that we would produce finished items that we could send her pictures of, and that those pictures wouldn't be too bad, right? And so I have yet to do that. But she was also interested in seeing the sock, a sock that was crocheted and one that was knit. So I think I have enough to maybe make a small shorty socks with a coordinating or contrasting toe, heel, and cuff. And the yarn is lovely, I will say. It has a wonderful feel to it. And even though it was treated, superwash treated, it says, she still recommends hand washing to preserve colors. But I would recommend still hand washing to avoid felting, because as I have told you before, I was able to felt in the ends of these at one point where I had started the cuff on this one. I had finished the sock completely. I did not do these two at a time. or consecutively. So I did this whole sock first with the cuff, and the cuff, I had used the cuff that was suggested in the pattern, which is a rolled cuff. There's a stitch pattern that creates a rolled cuff, but when I got to the second sock, I had done it in the contrast in yellow. When I got to the second sock, I got to the heel, then I didn't have enough yarn to complete the heel. If you look up close, and depending on the lighting here, you'll notice that the bottom part of the heel is complete yellow, and the top one is yellow, but it's got like shades of pink, because I ran out of the Stellina yellow, and I had to use this other speckled yellow, which I have shown before, and I've talked about it because I did a pair of socks with this, and I did several other projects with it. It is Sugar Cookies, though I can't remember the dyer. So I tried to use from stash what the yellow color that I had that I thought closest fit this one. And if it's true that you can't, maybe from far away, and plus that's the heel, it's going to be in my sock, nobody's going to see it. You can't see it, but I'm pretty sure it's noticeable. If you compare them like this, you can see that that second heel over here has got like a pinkish tone to it. Well, it turned out that when I completed the sock and I went to do the cuff, this sock, I couldn't even get it on with that cuff. It was way too tight and just closed up the top of the sock so much that I couldn't get it on. So I did what I should have done when I found that I didn't have enough yarn for this heel. I tore back this heel and redid it. Not the heel. I tore back this cuff and I redid it using my usual cuff, my usual what's it called? The rib stitch for crochet. And then I did this one the same. So with that yarn that I tore out from this cuff, I would have had enough to finish this heel. But, well, I didn't want to tear it back at that stage, so I just left it. Nobody's going to see it. This is not the cuff recommended by the pattern, because this is the ribbed cuff that I usually make for crochet. This is not the heel made for this pattern, because I used a short row heel that I use in my sweet socks pattern, because this pattern has an afterthought heel. And so as it works, what I kept the same was the pattern for the leg, and I like it, and the foot, and I have to say that I like it a lot. Like I say, I can't talk too much about it in detail because it is a book that you purchase, but if you have a chance to look at it, I really like this pattern. The socks fit well, and I like the feel of them also. So yes, that is, obviously no longer can they participate in the strictly 2018 Cal, but that's fine. That's fine because I just wanted the socks to be done. But in my mind, I know that I began them for that Cal. So that's my second pair of socks. I have a couple of other socks that I remember telling you that I brought on from 2018. But for example, I did do the Jemima sock. The Jemima sock was an experiment where I was going to have a crocheted toe, a crocheted heel, and a crocheted cuff, and simply do the leg and the foot in a knit pattern. And for that experiment, I chose the Jemima sock pattern. Again, a pattern from Kay Jones' Miss Potter collection. And again, I say it is that pattern only because I'm keeping the pattern for the foot and the leg, because I'm doing them toe up. The toe is crocheted, so is the heel. I don't know about the cuff. I don't know, because adding a crochet heel to a knit sock is going to be a challenge. I'll have to bind off half of the stitches, complete my sock, my heel, and then pick up those stitches at the back. And I don't know what kind of holes that is going to create, but I was up for the challenge. So I was basically at the point where I had to add the heel to my first sock, and notice that I had somehow made a mistake at the back, where at one point I had continued with the wrong pattern at the back, and I thought I could live with it, but I couldn't. So I decided to rip all the way back to that, which was about 2.5 inches of the foot, because I was already ready for the heel. And so I'm going to start over little by little at that point, and try and get a sock that looks nice, that my experiment, that it is an experiment, will only have issues because of the way that I made it, and not because of my lack of talents for knitting at this point, or my lack of skills. So that one has nothing to show you because it's actually smaller than it was the last time I talked about it. But I am going to continue working on it through this year. It will at some point be completed. I'll be able to share that experiment with you. There is no purpose. I am not trying to prove that one craft is better than the other with this experiment. I am merely trying to show that the crafts can live in harmony. And though it's probably not something I would recommend for any reason, it's just something I wanted to do, and I want to see how it works out. So, I mean, it is known that knitting socks for novices like myself can be time consuming. It takes us a lot of time to get the sock done, whereas I can whip up a crochet sock in 3 days, not because I'm dedicating 24 hours a day to them, but because over a 3-day time, over 3 days, I am dedicating a certain amount of hours, 2 or 3 hours to the sock, and it'll be done. But I can't do that with knit. So there are preferences for different parts. Do I think I can do a crochet rib faster than a knit rib? Not sure. That I have my doubts. I'd have to actually sit down and time myself in order to know that, because crochet ribbing is time consuming also. So yeah, I'll get back to you on all of those comparisons later on. So like I say, I'm not doing it to prove a point here about which craft is better than the other. I am better at crochet. So while I get used to knitting socks, I would like to certain parts of my socks to do them in crochet because I can get it done faster. And although everybody says you should enjoy the process of crafting, and it has all these therapeutical qualities and benefits, I still think that I am a person who wants to get things done. I like to see things done. I love to look at them once they're done, but I don't really enjoy the process as much as I do the product. Although I will say that I really enjoyed that stitch pattern for that crochet sock that I just made. Okay, and so that's it for my finished projects. I'll share with you the only new crochet project that I began. I have decided to look through all my bags that I have sitting around this year, and the bags don't always have projects in them. Sometimes I take a bag and I put yarn into them with a pattern that I want to work up. So this was a yarn that I was gifted from my daughter. It might have been a Mother's Day present, because it was around the time when I was crocheting the Hotel of Bees shawl. But anyway, so I decided not to crochet up that shawl, and this is the yarn ball Heavenly Flower design. It is 50%, oh, you can see it on that side too. It is 50% silk and 50% yak. 125 grams of sport weight. And this color is the color Persimmon. Persimmon. So it's, I have to say it's orange. I thought it was apricot when I bought it, but it is orange. And so I finally got around to using it. And the pattern that I am working up is also a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry, or maybe somewhere else, but I found it on Ravelry. And it is very similar to a garment that I crocheted. This pattern is called the Sea Lace. If you've seen our podcast, the Sea Lace called the Feather and Fan, because it is also by the same designer. These are new patterns from 2015. Here it is. It's very similar to the Feather and Fan top that I crocheted a while back. And this is by, pretty sure her name is Rebecca Averill. Rebecca Averill. Revised January 2016. Okay, so this is what I've got so far. This is the beginning of the yoke. I will say it took me a while to get it right. I had to do it several times. She suggests a 4mm hook, but I couldn't use a 4mm hook. I don't know if it was this yarn, but it was way too big. It is made to be pretty wide at the yoke, at the neck, and then you kind of like pull it in with single crochet. But it was so wide, the yoke was like falling down here, that I didn't think I'd be able to pull it up with a single crochet and that it would look right. So I redid it, reducing to a 3.75, and then a third time I finally reduced it to 3.25. And now, see how it's still, and this is silk, so this is a yak, so it's going to stretch. But I think now it is at a point where I can say, oh, this will work. I think it's at a point where I can say this will work. So it's a very pretty lacy pattern. I believe it's called sea lace because it kind of like creates a wave. So I was like, oh, wow, I wish I would have done it in blue. But I wanted to use yarn that I had in my stash. But I do have a cotton yarn that is blue in my stash. So I'm thinking about maybe if this one turns out okay, there'll be a second one. So I've got a long ways to go. But it's basically this pattern repeated over and over again in the round. Then I'll join, leaving 4 patterns on each side for the sleeves and all the rest for the yoke. Obviously it's not at this point because it's going to begin increasing now. It starts out here and it'll begin increasing for a while until you reach the bottom of your underarm, and then we'll split the yoke for the sleeves, and we will continue in the round for the duration of the project. And she does always suggest some fitting for the waist if you like that type of thing. And I'm undecided about whether I want it boxy or not, so I'll make that decision later on. But I have seen versions of it where they have added sleeves to it. So at this point right now, the design officially has a cap, but I am thinking about maybe bringing that sleeve down, continuing the pattern so that I could have a little sleeve to it. I like my garments with sleeves. So that is the only new project that I am working on. And so I wanted to end by sharing with you one of my Christmas gifts. I think I put a picture on Instagram, but I don't believe I shared it. I don't know. I can't remember. If I did share it on the last podcast, then I will cut this part out, but I'd have to go back and look. And then I received from my daughter this book, Knitting Never Felt Better. It's a guide to fabulous felting by Nikki Epstein. And even though it shows how pieces look when they're felted, I felt that the book is more about, or is also about, knitting and all these different types of knitting pattern and stitches, and how those knitting pattern or stitches look once they're felted. So you actually get two for your money, because you get the knitted pattern, how to create a specific pattern, and you get the instructions for that, and you also see how that pattern looks when it is felting, and there are some projects made with some of the patterns, not with all of them, but with some of them. And I just wanted to share some of the reasons why I thought the book was fabulous, even though I thought the knitting was way beyond my skill at the moment. I'd be too slow and I don't know, but I could try at least one pattern and work over the year on it. And so it's got things like hats. There's a beautiful felted hat. I think that hat is beautiful. I love the yarn too. But the book, these yarns are probably no longer available because the book is not a new book. And so one of the things it shows you is how to create texture and shapes that stay on your felting. For example, you see those bobbles? Those bobbles are not, or well, the puffs. They are made by knitting up the pattern, and once you have it knit, you place nuts into the bobbles and secure them with small rubber bands until the felting has dried. Well, until you have completed the felting process, either by hand or with the machine, and then it has dried. And so we leave those nuts in there, and there are just so many options. I know we're past this, but that I thought was a beautiful project. So maybe that's something I could work on for next Christmas. That is just beautiful. And it just goes on and on and on with the type of texture that you can create by inserting objects into your knitting and securing it with a rubber band during the felting process. And so there are other textured garments, and it's just full of the stitches. This is, for example, the brick stitch, and then how it looks once it's felted. And so I just think it's all beautiful. It's just patterns, gives you the map for the knitting, and then shows you how it knits up and how it felts up. So basically the felting is optional. You could just knit it and then not felt it if you didn't want to. But here's some eye candy. That would take me a lifetime. I don't think I could start and finish it in one lifetime. It's knit to which obviously the flowers have been added and then it's been felted. So it was a lovely gift. There's home deco, and this was, I found interesting because I do a lot of I-cord. And basically you knit up the cushion, attach the I-cord by sewing it, and then felt. And then felt the two together. And so all of those things looked just beautiful to me. And I think it is an amazing book, not because it's, like I say, it's a two-in-one. You've got the the felting is there, and they do select certain specific projects and explain to you how to knit it up and how to felt it. But in between, they have all these other knitting patterns that you could just try out for fun and make a whole bunch of small swatches and then put them together to make a blanket or something. And so I wanted to share that to you, to maybe start off this new year with new ideas and new desires to do new things and meet new challenges, and wish you all the best crafting year possible. And so, until we meet again, if you have not subscribed, I would please ask you to press that subscribe button below. And if you have liked the video, well, hit the like. All of those things help other people to find us on the internet. And in the meantime, while we meet again, please keep yourself safe, keep yourself happy, and keep crafting. Bye for now. Hi everybody, I'm back for just a moment because I realized while I was editing episode 18 that I had forgotten to address a very important issue, and it was the issue of my change in hairstyle. Yes, my change in hairstyle, because it is an important issue. Some of you would have been very surprised, some of you would have been awed, some of you might have even been devastated, but it had to go. My first radical decision of 2019. But I just wanted to assure you all that even though I have changed drastically on the outside, I am still the same old person on the inside. So I'll be back every 2 weeks, like always, to share with you my crafting, and I hope you'll be back to share with me also. Bye for now.